and so it is. But when Anne-Marie asked me to write about home, it was because I'm dancing at the moment for my body, for my mental health, I suppose also for the music. It enlivens me, and it's where I go for my therapy now, and the pen as well. But as soon as she said it, these words came to my head, and you're probably familiar with it for those of you who are country and western fans. It is my homeland, the place I was born in. No matter where I go, it's in my soul. My feet may wander 1,000 places, but my heart will lead me back to my home in Abbeyleix. Well, I've changed it from the Donegal one. Do we change much from childhood? Life continues to chip away at my personal sculpture. It leaves me standing here tonight, raw and unfinished, open and vulnerable. I moved to Dublin when I was 18. O'Connell Street was very busy. I was looking for a familiar face. I felt alone. Nobody spoke to me at the bus stop or on the buses. I could hear other people talking. I was an outsider. I didn't sound like I belonged. Accents were different. People were distant. But if you were having a conversation on the street in Abbeyleix and somebody else approached you, you'd stop your conversation to include them, saying things like, "You're a stranger around here, can I help you?" Or if it's a local, you might say, "We were just talking about you. Was your nose itchy? How did the wedding go? Have you any news yet? Is it 2 months now since the big day?" Embarrassing conversations were had on the street. I thought at the time that it showed that you were interested in other people. Not everybody liked that type of invasive conversation. I didn't like it myself. In a small town, everybody knew everybody else's business. Did you get the interview for the nursing, Helen? How many interviews have you had now? You'll surely get a place. Have you any contacts in St. Vincent's? Have you any contacts in the Mater? Your mother's cousin now, Helen. Doesn't she work in Jervis Street? Surely she'd be able to pull you in there. The whole town knew about my failures and my successes. They knew I struggled in school. I had a friend in national school, Marion. We were both at the bottom of the class. She left school at age 12. It was the beginning of free education, of secondary education in Ireland. Not everybody could avail of it. Marion had to start working at 12. She said I only got the Leaving Cert because I was Fianna Fáil. As young children, we learned how to mix with others on the street. We played daily. We skipped, played hopscotch, pushed our dolls and prams around the town. We robbed apples in the local orchards. We cycled to the River Nore to swim on sunny days. We went to Bluebell Hill in May on the Devessie estate. We made our friends on the streets of the town. There were no gangs. We ran in and out of each other's houses. All the doors were open. You had to make an effort to make friends. You had to bring something to the group. We all knew each other from school. And to play on the street, you had to get popular to be included. You had to know where to go for adventures. You had to know where the apples were. Every estate had a different adventure. Donkey rides were very popular. Everybody had a donkey because you needed the donkey to bring the turf home from the bog. And we had great fun on the donkeys when the parents weren't around, up one road, down another road, racing each other and holding on. barebacked. The farmers had horses and carts as the main source of transport in the town. Our backyard was filled with horses and carts on Saturday when the farmers would come in to shop in the town. The shopping consisted of food for the animals and flour for making bread. Most families had their own chickens, eggs, bacon, vegetables and milk. My job on a Saturday afternoon was to shovel the offal that came from the bottoms of the horses. This was used to fertilise the roses and for the vegetables. A great place for hide and seek was the graveyard. We roller skated as well on the wide pathways. When there was nobody around, I went to the blacksmith in Bandical Road. I could go there. There were adults only. I would sit silently in the warmth of the forge, listening to the tap of the hammer and the anvil. I would look the horse in the eye to see if he was in pain. The horses were as content as I was, happy to raise the foot for a new shoe. They say it takes a town to rear a child. I was that child, learning how to fit into the environment and all the people and animals in it. I was at home there. My next home, I have to say, you'll be delighted to know, was in the Mater Hospital nurses' home. I was proud to say I got a place there. The cousin did have a chat with the sisters. I had an instant group of friends, all my own age. We were ready to save the world, and we were terrified that we'd kill somebody on the wards because we knew nothing. Every day we dressed up as nurses, and I remember one Dublin man said, "Is this a fancy dress or what?" But we were helped by the other nurses, and every day we learned new skills. But most of all, we learned to relate to each other and to our patients. I found caring for others easy. I learnt about the human body and how it worked. I had never seen a naked man or woman. Once I got over my awkwardness, I was happy to be helpful to others. I never thought I'd be good at anything. I was becoming very pleased with myself. I was now a useful member of society. On nights off, we went out on the town. We were delighted to be hand-holding and kissing and testing ourselves out there with the men of Dublin. But I only ever wanted to meet up with a man from the country. I could never imagine myself living in Dublin. It wasn't my home. I got invited to other people's houses on days off. One house I went to in Wexford, it had no toilet. I hadn't experienced this before. There was a pot under the bed. But to my friend, that was normal. I didn't know what to do about emptying it. Where would I go with the contents? Would I spill it going down the stairs? Would anybody see me? Just dump it and get on with it, Sheila said. The main event that weekend was a dance in Adamstown. We were all day getting ready, swapping dresses, looking at what we'd wear, and eventually got going. But who was going to dance with me? I was a stranger in the town. But because I was with Sheila, I was part of her family for the weekend. All her brothers and cousins danced with me that night, and I had an unbelievable warm feeling of love and acceptance. I was told later by Sheila that the boys were all under strict instructions from the parents to make sure that I got up for every dance. But I also wanted to get home to Abbeyleix any free time I had. The mode of transport was fantastic. We got the bus to Newlands Cross. Everybody had a placard. We stuck out our thumbs and we headed for home. We didn't care. We travelled in twos. It was fantastic. It's a pity it has died out. Recently I thought I might start again. It was an adventure every time. Newlands Cross was crowded with young people with big placards with the name of the town they wanted to go to. We travelled in twos for safety. We met the good, the bad and the ugly on the road, but we never had any bad experiences. I think the fact that we had seen men in their pyjamas and we knew how vulnerable they were, we were well able for them all on the way home. We were so excited to be going home. Home for Mammy's dinners, home for Daddy's advice and a few bob. Going to Mass on Sundays was not so much a religious event, but just to see who was home for Christmas, Easter, the long bank holiday. And we'd all be trying to arrange where we were going to go for the weekend, where we were going to be dancing. My home was just beside the church, and after Mass, all the friends would come back to ours. My gang, my sister's gang, my brother's gang. My mother had a bakery, so cakes and tea was a big draw. It made me very popular. My mother was hospitable and had a welcome to all my friends. Sometimes, some of them were reluctant to go home and would be welcomed for dinner. Home was the smell of brown bread, dinners cooking. Home was the noise of talking and laughing and the clacking of crockery around the table. Dad's friends came and played cards. I'm not sure if anybody here remembers a solo or 25, but it was a big activity in our house. We were all included in these games from an early age, and we played for money. It's where we learned to win or lose. It was a place where we discovered selfish players. There were hidden rules. My father was only happy when everybody was 24 out in the game of 25. We learned to talk to all age groups. We were included in adult discussions, and our opinions were always listened to. We learned ourselves to be hospitable and share what we had. My father made the sandwiches and my mother served the tea for these events. I had many happy homes along the way, but tonight I want to talk about my most recent home. I met Paul 24 years ago. He was separated and so was I. He had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. I had 2 boys. His father lived with him in the granny flat within the house, and I loved the old man. He said if Paul didn't marry me, he'd marry me himself. He was 86. I felt Paul was not the man for me. He was too steady. He had a good job. He kept his house and garden immaculate. He was an engaging conversationalist. He wined and dined me. He introduced me to his friends. I thought I'd hold on to him to introduce him to my single friends. He told me that he was the man for me and that I just didn't know it yet. I told him that we might just be friends, but he was having none of it. I was beginning to get fond of being with him, and I enjoyed the time that we spent together. He was very attentive and caring. He got a pain in his back and was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was then that I knew that I didn't want to lose this man, and so began a beautiful life together. We were married 17 years ago. Our home was warm and hospitable. Friends called, his and mine. We had dinners and fine wines. We celebrated his all clear by getting married. Paul was a gadget man and he loved music. He had record players, CD players, USB ports, computers. Every room you went into had the speakers coming out. Bose, I'm not sure if I was pronouncing it right. Yeah, everything was boom boom. I was sitting watching the telly one night and I felt I was, he loved cowboys and Indians, and then I felt I was being shot. And I jumped. Somebody. He had a new surround sound. It was terrifying. After a dinner party in our house, I felt, because of the hospitality and the nursing, I had done reflexology and massage. So I thought, I'd give people a basin of water to put their feet in. I thought that might be nice. So then they were all there. It was like the tide came in. Everybody was sitting there splashing with the water. Paul would play, while they were all in the Paul would turn on the music and play games like name that tune, or what musical did that come from? He knew all the musicals. Yeah. Anyway, I knew nothing about the artists. I knew I loved music. I did not know about the artists and what bands they were in previous, those kind of things. I just moved from guest to guest, drying the feet and massaging. And towards the end of the night then, the music would take over and we'd all get up and dance. The house was big, there was 4 big downstairs rooms and we danced from room to room. And the faster the music, the more rowdy we'd get. And he could see we were going to Recky's place. So then he toned down the music. Nice and quiet, the way it go from room to room. Anyway. He was afraid, yeah. Paul died 14 months ago. We lived a full life to the end. Walking the beach in Spain 6 weeks before he died. He had got the all clear from cancer again. We swam the Mediterranean, we held hands and laughed and joking, and Paul was planning a world trip for the 2 of us. I had just retired and he was celebrating his all clear. Paul developed a cough, which continuously worsened despite Spanish doctors' interventions with antibiotics and nebulizers. I rang the Mater again, where he was having his treatment, to tell them about Paul, and they advised him to bring him back as soon as I could. The doctors told us that they would do everything they could, and they did. The cough acted very much like COVID and continued to worsen. He told me that he was ready to die, and that if that's what was going to happen to him. He said he had achieved everything in life that he had set out to do. He asked me to take out my notebook and write down his wishes. He dictated his funeral arrangements. He chose the undertaker and the coffin. We had a row about the coffin. I said, do you want the big one that you had for your father? He had paid, I think, 1,600 for the coffin. He said, no. He said, get the cheapest. He was an accountant at the end. He chose the priest and the catering then. I won't, that's another story all on its own. He told me he'd look out for me from above. I hope you're watching down, Paul. I sat with him in the ICU. It was like a little place, like home that time. Listening to the sound of the respirator and the beat of his heart on the monitor. I massaged his feet. It was the only way I could communicate my love. His children and mine sat around his bed telling stories about Paul. We laughed and cried. If he had been conscious, he would have loved it. I left Paul's keys behind me in that happy home last Monday. The house was quiet, cold and empty like my heart. Paul's favourite bottle of wine was Faustino 1. I left a bottle of Faustino 1 and a card for the new owners, wishing them joy and happiness in their new home, saying that I have been very happy there and I hoped they would be too. Yesterday I decided that I wouldn't put up any Christmas decorations. I was not in the mood. Today my mood has lifted. My apartment is decorated, full of Christmas decorations that I packed and brought with me from Paul's house. The crib is centre stage, which is very important to me as a midwife. New birth, new life following a painful labour. I placed the 3 wise men behind the Virgin Mary and hope that I will gain wisdom over the season of goodwill. Chance to be fine thing. I have poinsettias around the house to remind me to stay watered and rooted. I live alone in my apartment. When I walk up the steps to my new front door, I thank God for giving me life and love. I am grateful to have had many happy homes along my path in life. Imelda May sings, I wish I had someone to love me, someone to call me their own. Philosophers and psychologists tell me that I must love myself. And so I love myself by loving my new apartment, keeping myself cosy and warm, a safe place surrounded by my memories, my photographs of family and friends. I now go dancing with my new friend Frances. I enjoy the music and the physical contact and the company of men. As the tempo changes, I change the man for the next dance. I live in hope to find another soulmate. I have just taken the bread out of my new oven. The kitchen is warm. It smells of creativity and abundance. It is the familiar smell of home. I have discovered that trying to be in control of my life is a waste of time. I choose now to let go of control and to move into the reality of my life. I now involve myself supporting other widows and widowers. I have become a facilitator with beginning experience, an organisation set up to support bereaved and divorced couples, or the single person who's left. So if anybody would like that phone number tonight, or I can leave the phone number with Anne-Marie if anybody wants to contact me in relation to beginning experience. They're a beautiful group trying to support each other. It's a struggle when you're on your own, and it is lovely to meet like-minded people. The end.